Before he became Pope Leo XIV, he was just a boy with a silent prayer, a dream no one believed, not even him. Chapter 1. A Boy from Nowhere. The wind was sharp that winter, the ground frozen and silent, and in a small village no one remembered, a boy was born. His name was Matteo. He came into a world of work, hard hands, tired faces, quiet prayers, the kind of place where people didn't dream, they survived. Matteo's family had little, no books, no music, just the earth and the church. His father was a farmer, his mother a woman of silence and faith. But Matteo was different. At night, when the village slept, he would climb the hill behind his home, look at the stars, and whisper, "God, do you see me?" His eyes searched the sky, as if hoping for an answer, a sign, a light. In school, Matteo asked too many questions. Why do we suffer? Does God speak to boys like me? The teacher frowned. Faith is not for questions, he said. But Matteo didn't stop asking. He read every book he could find, even the old ones at church. Latin words, ancient prayers, strange, beautiful ideas. He didn't understand them all. But something inside him said, "Keep going." The priest noticed him. "You have a gift," he said one day. But Matteo didn't feel gifted. He felt hungry, not for food, but for purpose. Still, life was hard. The family needed help. And the world? It didn't care about dreams. One cold morning, before the sun had risen, Matteo packed a small bag. He looked at his mother's face, at the wooden cross on the wall, at the land he had always known. Then he stepped out and didn't look back. He walked for hours, then days, sleeping in barns, eating bread when he could, and always whispering at night, "God, if you are listening, show me the way." He reached the edge of a great city, Rome, big, loud, full of marble and mystery. He stood there, dirty and tired, looking up at the buildings, at the crosses, at the sky. His heart beat fast. Was this the beginning of something, or the end? He had nothing, no money, no plan, just hope, and a quiet fire inside. And as the bells rang in the distance, he walked toward the sound. Would the city welcome a dreamer, or break him? Chapter 2. Hungry for Light. The city didn't care who he was. No one asked his name. No one noticed his thin face or the holes in his shoes. Matteo had arrived in Rome, alone. The streets were loud, voices, wheels, animals, always moving. The smell of bread and smoke, the beauty of churches, and the coldness of stone. Matteo wandered and wondered, where do I begin? His stomach was empty, but his heart was full of questions, full of dreams. He found an old church near the river, quiet, tall, forgotten by the rich. He pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. Inside, it was warm. Candles, statues, silence. He felt safe. "Can I help here?" he asked the priest. The man looked at him surprised. You're just a boy. I can sweep, I can clean. And so he stayed. Days passed. He swept the floors, washed the walls, carried wood for the fire. At night, when the priest went to sleep, Mateo stayed behind. He sat by the candle and read. Old books, Latin prayers, stories of saints and sinners. He didn't understand everything, but he kept going, word by word, page by page. Books became his food. Prayers became his fire. One evening, the priest returned early. He found Mateo reading. You read Latin? Mateo froze. A little, he whispered. The priest sat down beside him. Read this. He gave him a new book. Mateo's hands shook, but he read. Slowly, carefully, every word, like gold. The priest smiled. Where did you learn this? Back home, in the church. The priest nodded. You have a gift. From that day, everything changed. The priest gave him more books, taught him grammar, taught him history, taught him how to think. Mateo studied harder than anyone. He listened, he learned, he asked 1,000 questions. Sometimes he sat alone, wondering what his family would say if they saw him now. A poor boy, learning the language of popes, and then the priest gave him a robe, not rich, not new, but it fit. Mateo looked in the mirror, not at his clothes, but at his eyes. I'm still that boy from nowhere, he whispered, but now I see the light. Outside, the bells rang, a sign of evening, or maybe a sign of something else. What path had he just begun? Could a poor boy truly become a scholar? Or something more? Chapter 3. Shadows in the Church. They called him Brother Mateo now. He walked through stone halls with calm steps and silent eyes. But inside, a storm was growing. Years had passed since he arrived in Rome. He was no longer the boy with torn shoes. He wore black robes. He spoke Latin, taught others, even advised priests. But something felt wrong. He watched, he listened. Meetings behind closed doors, gold gifts, fake smiles, power hidden in prayers. One day, he saw a poor woman crying at the church gate. She begged for help. A priest walked past her and didn't stop. Mateo did. He gave her bread, sat with her, listened. She said, God sees me, but his house is closed. Those words stayed in Mateo's heart. He started noticing more. A bishop who sold blessings, a leader who loved control more than kindness, holy men chasing power. At night, Mateo sat in his small room, candle burning, heart heavy. This is not the church I dreamed of. He began to write, not sermons, not lessons, but truths. In a notebook, he wrote about what he saw, what he feared, and what he believed the church could be. His words were sharp, but honest. He wrote, "The church must be light, not shadow. It must lift the poor, not forget them. It must speak truth, not hide behind robes." He hid the notebook under his bed. Only God knew what was inside. But rumors started. "Brother Mateo is too serious," some said. "He asks too many questions. He is dangerous." One priest warned him, "Careful, brother. Words are like fire." Mateo replied, "Yes, but sometimes fire is needed." He still prayed each night, still served, but his heart was not quiet. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to heal, but healing sometimes hurts. One evening, as he sat alone, he held the notebook in his hands. He whispered, "Will my words help the church or destroy me?" Outside, a bell rang, calling for prayer. He stood, put on his robe, and walked into the candlelight. But the shadows were waiting. Chapter 4. The Call. It came on a gray morning. Rain tapped the windows, slow and soft. Then a knock at the door. A letter, gold seal, red wax, heavy paper. Mateo held it in his hands, afraid to open it. He could feel it. This was no ordinary letter. He broke the seal. His eyes scanned the words, once, then again. "The Holy Father requests your presence at the Vatican." His heart stopped. The Pope wanted him? He packed nothing, just took the letter and walked. The city looked different that day. The stones felt alive. The statues seemed to watch him. When he reached the gates of the Vatican, he paused. Was this a mistake? Was this a test? Guards let him in. A man led him down a long hall, full of gold and silence. Every step echoed. At last, the Pope's door. It opened slowly. There, sitting in simple white, was the most powerful man in the church, Pope Benedict. He looked at Mateo with tired eyes, but kind ones. He did not speak for a moment. He simply pointed to a chair. Mateo sat. His hands shook. The Pope finally spoke. "I've read your words, Brother Mateo." Mateo opened his mouth, but no sound came. The Pope continued. "You wrote what others fear to say. You saw truth in the dark." Silence again. Then he leaned forward. "We need fire, and you burn." Mateo felt his chest tighten. The Pope was not angry. He was hopeful. "You see what's broken," the Pope said, "and I believe you want to fix it." Mateo lowered his head. "I do, but I'm afraid." The Pope nodded. "So am I." That moment changed everything. Mateo was no longer just a monk. He became an advisor, a voice in the Vatican, not because he wanted power, but because he couldn't stay silent. He began to meet with cardinals. to speak in rooms he once only cleaned, to write letters the whole church would read. But not everyone was happy. Too young, some said. Too bold. Too dangerous. Whispers returned, warnings followed. Still, he stayed. One night, he walked through the Vatican garden, alone, stars above, silence below. He thought of his village, of the hill where he first asked, "God, do you see me?" Now he felt seen, but also watched, loved, and feared. He looked up at the moon. Was I chosen or tested? A soft wind moved the trees. No answer came. But one thing was clear. The fire inside him was burning brighter than ever, and soon it would light the world. But was the church ready for fire? Chapter 5. The Silent Years. Some voices lead from the front. Others lead from the shadows. For many years, Matteo stayed behind the curtain. Not because he was afraid, but because the church needed quiet strength. He worked in silence, advised bishops, wrote speeches, solved problems no one saw. He knew every corner of the Vatican and every secret in it. Matteo had become trusted, but not famous, and that was fine with him. "I'm not here to be seen," he once said. "I'm here to serve." He taught young priests, listened to angry cardinals, calmed storms before they became disasters. When wars started, he wrote letters for peace. When churches burned, he helped rebuild. When people lost faith, he tried to bring it back. But he asked himself more and more, what does God want now? The world was changing, faster, louder, colder. Many people didn't trust the church anymore. Matteo felt the weight of it all, and deep inside, something was growing. Not pride, but purpose. A voice inside him that whispered, "There's more to do, more to say." But he waited. Until one day, the waiting ended. The Pope was sick. And then, he was gone. The bells rang slow and deep. People cried in the square. A great man had died. Matteo stood by the window. Looking out at the city he once walked as a poor boy. He remembered the rain, the hunger, the silence. Now, the church needed a new leader. Names were spoken in closed rooms, powerful names, old names. But one name returned, again and again. Matteo. Some said yes, others said no. "He's too quiet," they warned. "He is not strong enough. He speaks of truth, but the world needs control." Matteo said nothing. He prayed. He waited. In those days of silence, he asked the same question again and again. Am I the one? Or just a voice before the storm? Outside, crowds waited. Inside, decisions were being made. And Matteo sat alone in the chapel. No crown, No gold, just a simple man with a burning heart. Would the world choose him or forget him? Would the church choose fire or fear? Chapter 6. Smoke and Silence. The sky was gray. The world was waiting. In St. Peter's Square, thousands stood still, eyes on the chimney, hearts full of hope and fear. And then it came. White smoke. It curled into the sky like a whisper from heaven. The bells began to ring. Slow, deep, holy. Inside the Vatican, the cardinals rose. One name had been chosen. Leo the 14th. Matteo stood alone in the chamber. He felt the weight of the robe before he even wore it. The world would now call him Pope. But inside, he was still just Matteo, the boy from nowhere, the boy who once asked, God, do you see me? And now, the world saw him. He closed his eyes. Tears filled them. Why me, God? He whispered. So many others had more power, more charm, more everything. But a quiet voice inside answered, because you care. He breathed in, then out, and walked toward the balcony. The doors opened. The light hit his face. The crowd below was silent, waiting for their new shepherd. Some smiled. Some looked confused. Few knew who he really was. He looked out at the faces, the cameras, the flags. But more than that, he looked at their eyes, eyes full of pain, eyes full of need, eyes searching for something more than a name. He did not speak right away. He stood in silence, letting the moment breathe. He thought of his mother, of the church where he first read Latin, of the shadows he had written about, and the fire he had carried all these years. Then he spoke. Software clear, human. My brothers and sisters, I was not born for this robe. I was born to listen, to serve, to walk with you. The people leaned in. I choose the name Leo, not because I am a lion, but because we must be brave. His words were simple, but they reached the soul. He spoke not like a king, but like a son, a brother, a voice from the crowd, now standing above it. The square filled with applause, tears, whispers of, maybe this time, things will be different. Matteo stepped back. His heart was beating fast, but he knew. This was only the beginning. He had been chosen, but not for power. He had been chosen for purpose. And now, the world was listening. What would he say next to a church and a world so full of wounds? Chapter 7. His first words. The world held its breath. Cameras pointed, lights burned, millions watched, but no one spoke. It was the first time he stood before them, as Pope, and every word would matter. Matteo took one step forward, The wind brushed his white robe. He looked at the sky, then down at the crowd. He could see faces, real people, some with hope, some with doubt, some with pain. He closed his eyes for a second. Then he spoke. "I was born with nothing," he said. A pause, a heartbeat. "But I am here for everything." No one moved. He continued, "I do not stand here for power, not for glory. I stand for truth, for peace, for love." The words were simple, but they shook the air like thunder. Mothers cried. Old men nodded. Even some of his enemies lowered their heads. He didn't shout. He didn't wave. He just spoke. "I know many have lost faith. I know the church has made mistakes. But I am not here to hide them. I am here to heal them." People listened. "I promise," he said, "I will walk with the poor. I will sit with the lost. I will speak for the silent." He looked straight into the camera. "And I will be human." That sentence, that one sentence, was the beginning of something new. No pope had spoken like that before. No leader had sounded so real. He didn't talk about laws. He didn't talk about rules. He talked about people, about hearts, about light in the middle of darkness. And the world felt it. In homes, in streets, in prisons, in churches. People watched and cried and hoped. Hope had returned. But behind the beauty of that moment, a question still waited. Could one man truly change a world so divided? Could a voice from the past fix the future? Matteo stepped back from the balcony. The applause followed him. But in his heart, he knew the journey had just begun. Words are powerful. But would they be enough? Would the church walk with him? Would the world listen for more than one day? He didn't know. But he whispered to himself, "Let the fire begin." Chapter 8. Fire and Questions. The crown was light, but the weight was heavy. Soon after his first speech, the world began to test him. Faster than anyone expected. A war broke out in a far country. Children cried. Cities burned. The people looked to Rome for a voice. Pope Leo XIV spoke clearly. We must choose peace, even when it's hard. We must love, even when it hurts. But not everyone liked that. Some leaders turned away. Some said he should stay out of politics. Others said he is too soft, too slow, too human. Then came the protests. In his own city, people shouted about the past, about justice, about pain the church had caused. Pope Leo didn't send police. He didn't hide in silence. He walked into the crowd. No guards, no fear, just a white robe and open hands. People were shocked. One young man screamed, "You're too late!" Leo looked at him and said, "I am late. But I'm here, and I will listen." Tears filled the boy's eyes, again and again. He chose the harder path, not to rule, but to reach. He visited prisons. He washed the feet of refugees. He opened the Vatican to the homeless. Some called him weak. Others called him dangerous. A few called him holy. One reporter asked, "Can a pope still be human?" He smiled softly. A pope must be, if he forgets how to cry, how to forgive, how to love, then he is not a shepherd, he is just a statue. But being human came with pain. One of his closest advisors betrayed him, leaked letters, spread lies, tried to ruin his name. Leo did not fight back. He invited the man for dinner, and when the man arrived, confused and afraid, Leo opened the door himself. "Come," he said, "let's eat, then we'll talk." Forgiveness was his quiet fire, but fire needs fuel. And he was getting tired. Too many speeches, too many meetings, too much hate, hidden behind smiles. At night, he walked alone in the garden, sometimes barefoot, sometimes in tears. He looked at the stars like he did as a boy and whispered, "God, how long can I carry this?" The wind answered softly, but gave no clear reply. He placed a hand over his heart, still burning, still full. But even fire needs rest, and tomorrow the world would knock again. Would he still have the strength to open the door? Chapter 9. The Man Behind the Robes. Power can make a man loud, but truth often lives in silence. It was late. The Vatican was asleep, but one light still burned. In a small room near the chapel. There, Pope Leo XIV sat alone. No crowds, no cameras, just him and the night. He was not wearing the golden robe, not the ring, only a simple white shirt and a wooden cross from his childhood. He held it in his hands like a secret. Outside, the city of Rome slept, but inside Matteo's heart, there was still a whisper, a question. God, am I still yours? He asked it not with fear, but with longing. He remembered the village, the cold nights, the stars. That first moment he said, "Do you see me?" And now, after all the speeches, after all the storms, after all the years, he still didn't want fame, or statues, or books written about him. He wanted meaning. He wanted to know that he had truly helped, that he had lifted someone's pain, that he had walked with love, not pride. That night, he took out a notebook, the same kind he used to hide under his bed. He opened it and wrote one last time. Not for the world, not for the church, just for God. Thank you for the fire. Thank you for the silence. Thank you for never leaving me, even when I doubted everything. He closed the book, breathed in the stillness, and smiled. The moonlight touched his face, not the face of a pope, but of a man who had been a poor boy, a dreamer, a voice in the dark, a man who tried, fell, stood up again, and never stopped walking. In the end, he didn't change the whole world, but he changed the part he could reach, one heart at a time, one truth at a time, one step closer to love, and maybe that was enough. He blew out the candle. The room went dark, but inside him, the fire stayed.